I'd like to get the video for Ashwin Viswanathan played. He's speaking today on the State of Indian Birds report, his insights from long-term bird monitoring based on birdwatchers data over several decades. So let's play the video now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Ashwin and I'll be talking to you about the state of India's birds, a seminal report generated entirely through the efforts of birdwatchers. Birdwatchers have been uploading information using a tool called eBird for the last many years. The use of eBird has grown considerably over the last 6 or 7 years, and now there are over 23 million observations uploaded to the platform. Over 20,000 birdwatchers have participated, but the tool began being used only in 2014. So how can there be long-term monitoring using this tool? This is because birdwatchers have gone back to their notes, notes all the way back from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, which they're meticulously written in their notebooks. These are a couple of examples of such notebooks. And through this, birdwatchers have uploaded complete checklists, which means every species that they saw during a given period of time from as far back as the 1960s. So here are some examples. A checklist by Tony Gaston from the 1960s, another one from the 1960s, 1970, 75, 77, and up into the 80s. And you see that there are many geographies that have been covered, and this is just a tiny snapshot of all the checklists that have been uploaded historically. And we are extremely grateful to all the people who have uploaded this information from their notes, because it's allowed such an effort to actually take place. Some checklists have even been uploaded by other people for posthumously. So with this opportunity, with this long-term data set actually being available, complete checklists of birds available across the entire country, all the way from the 1960s, several organizations, including governmental and non-governmental organizations, came together to work on such a report. This report, the intention was to come up with long-term trends for various bird species, as well as their distribution range sizes. But how can trends be derived from eBird checklists? So this is possible through a concept called frequency of reporting. Imagine that you have 5 checklists, and out of which a particular species is reported in all 5. But another species reported only in 3 out of 5. So checklist A would have been reported in 100% of the lists. Its frequency of reporting is 100%. Checklist species B, frequency of reporting is 60%. Now let's say we track the frequency of reporting of a species over time. This gives us an idea of how likely it has been to see or report that species over time, giving an index of abundance. So if a species, its frequency of reporting is dropping drastically over time, that indicates that the species is declining over time. But there are many biases in eBird data that need to be corrected statistically. Frequency of reporting is a function of birding effort. There might be some checklists that are 1 hour long, another one that's 3 hours long. So all of this needs to be standardized. So it's standardized to a checklist of average effort, standardized across season, and standardized across space. So let me quickly get to long-term trends. So I'll start off with our favorite species, the house sparrow. On the x-axis, we have time from before 2000 all the way to 2018. On the y-axis, you see signs of change in frequency of reporting. So you see that house sparrows actually remain stable over time, which is contrary to a lot of the concern that we had for the species. But at the same time, house sparrow has actually declined in cities. So you see the orange line that indicates a decline in cities, whereas in the country as a whole, which primarily includes rural areas, the species has remained stable. Redneck falcon, another species, has unfortunately declined considerably, like many open habitat raptors. The reason is still unknown, but what you see here is that it's declined by about 60% in the last 25 years. Ashyprinia. Ashyprinia is a species that loves degradation. Any shrubby habitat near our houses, and Ashyprinia is likely to be there. And unsurprisingly, Ashyprinia has increased considerably over the last 25 years, almost by 100%. Indian peafowl, a national bird, has increased by almost 100% over the last 25 years, a matter of both joy and concern because it's known to raid fields, and such an increase can have ecological consequences. Perhaps I will not talk about vultures because they are well monitored through many systematic studies, although the state of India's birds results are very similar to those obtained from the systematic studies, but I'll talk about shorebirds. What you see here are resident shorebirds, migratory shorebirds, and Arctic migratory shorebirds in these the three colors. And Arctic migratory shorebirds have undergone a particular crash. And this is actually novel information because Arctic migratory shorebirds spend the winter in India, and some of these breed in areas which are not monitored during the breeding season. But unfortunately, they seem to have declined quite considerably. And a good example of this is Pacific golden plover. What you see on the left is an independent assessment from Singapore. What you see on the right is an assessment from State of India's birds, and they're almost identical. And the species appears to have declined by almost 90% in these two important parts of its wintering range. Arctic migratory shorebirds are known to be threatened due to climate change at their breeding grounds. Perhaps this is one of the reasons, but also maybe the loss of wintering habitat. So this is something that is of high priority now. So overall, the State of India's birds report looked at 867 species of birds, of which uh, about little less than 500 were assessed for long-term trends because of the amount of available data, out of which 58 species are thought to have undergone a strong decline, and 72 species are currently declining very strongly. And overall, the report tries to put species in groups of conservation concern so that it can be prioritized for conservation, and 101 species are categorized as of high concern. So these are the species that are most important to prioritize for conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. That was really fascinating. And the kind of work that has happened using historical data, combining it with the last 5 years or 10 years of eBird data is truly remarkable. We have a lot to learn from it. Unfortunately, Ashwin will not be present today at this talk to answer questions. I'm sure you have a lot of questions. Please type them into the Slack channel dedicated to Ashwin's talk.